Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining today's online education digital summit. We have Superintendent Brashear from Rogers ISD. We are going to be talking about leading with purpose, building a culture of connections. And many of you may have listened to our podcast before, the Educational Leadership Podcast. We have roughly 80 episodes, I think, now. And a lot of those interviews we have are sharing the story of school superintendents overcoming challenges. It's more of a discussion. Today, we're going to really dive into very focused content, and we have these summits periodically where we do this, where we have very focused content just to educate versus discuss. And so today, very excited about having Superintendent Brashear here. I'm going to hand this off to her, and she'll share a little bit about her background, and then we'll jump right into the presentation. Superintendent Brashear, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Gary. First of all, thank you for having me. Thanks to your listeners. It's always good when we can share the great things happening in education and be multipliers. You and I chatted a little bit about that during the podcast. So I guess I am just going to jump into it. We are going to chat today about leading with purpose, building a culture of connections. I think this is incredibly important for our superintendents, campus leaders, district leaders, but also if we happen to have some aspiring leaders on here, some current teachers, I think this is great for them, thinking about how we can build culture of connection in our classrooms, our campuses, our districts. So just kind of a good thing for everybody. So anytime that I go to a PD or I'm sharing learning, I always think, who is the person leading this and what makes them the expert? So I'll talk a little bit about me. I am kicking off year 20 in education, all in public education. I spent 11 years as a public school teacher, got to spend time in first grade and third grade most of the time, and then some, little summer school stints here and there all the way up to eighth grade. I was 7 years as a campus leader, a couple of those years as an assistant principal, and then 5 years at the elementary and secondary level. Got the great honor to serve as an assistant superintendent last year under Rick Kirschner for Royal ISD. And I am currently kicking off my first year as superintendent of the Rogers ISD. It's a great district. Close to the Temple Waco area. We are a rural district. We have about 900 students, small 3A, small, town values. We really get connectedness right in our district. So I'm excited to share that. So a little bit about me. You'll notice here I don't have a picture of me, the formal picture. This is who I am when I think about being a leader. You see, on my birthday, they pulled me around in a wagon, and my kids made these little confetti poppers. When I was a junior high principal, I went out and practiced football with my kids. That's me and Big Al. Shout out to Big Al, who is now about a foot taller than me. And when I was an assistant superintendent, spent lots of times of visiting classrooms, talking to kids, talking to teachers, building those relationships as kind of a launch into building a culture of connections from the inside out. So that's me, public educator. Still think of myself as a teacher. Love being in classrooms. Love being with kids. It is such an honor to lead as a superintendent now and get to impact things on a broader scale. So I am going to talk to you about what we do in Rogers ISD, and it is something that I have done as a principal in a couple other districts. It's something I've done as an assistant superintendent, and we start every meeting, every interaction with good things. Full disclosure, this was kind of snatched from capturing kids' hearts, but that's what we do in education, right? We beg, steal, borrow. We take our best ideas from the best leaders and the best teachers, and that's what I did. So every meeting we take time to connect. It's really important for us as a team to start the meeting with just a moment of human connection, because in education and in leadership, you make really big decisions every day, and those are really hard, heavy decisions. And it doesn't matter if you're a classroom teacher and you're making decisions using data to drive instruction, or decisions about whether it's too hot to go outside for recess, or is the playground too wet and I'm stuck inside, all the way to superintendent, where you're making decisions of, as a team, do we shut school down? And so it's important that you connect. So when those hard decisions have to be made, you've connected and you've built this culture of trust and leaning on each other. So this is how we start. We a couple different ways. It could just be something, tell me something fun you've done. This week, our favorite good thing this week is, if you could compete in the Olympics, what would your event be? And I have learned more about my team this week with these good things than I probably wanted to know. We have synchronized swimmers. We have power walkers. We have hobby horse riders, if they were in the Olympics. Our HR lady, Cheyenne, she even told us that she would do rugby. So you learn a lot about people from good things. And then this is just at the bottom, a sample of what we did when we came together as a district learning team. That's how we kicked off our good things. That's how we connected. If you could be in one of these reality shows, which one, and why? So every meeting, every time we kick off, and we are really, really intentional about connecting, and that's just part of our culture of connections. So, still a teacher at heart. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about where we're headed today. We are going to talk about teaching practices, high quality teaching practice versus positive student teacher relationships, right? Like, what came first, the chicken or the egg? I'm going to talk to you a little bit about a study from Bergen and Olson, and how these relationships can lead to student impact, student achievement. That's for my data people. Put your money where your mouth is. Show me, tell me, give me examples. Have some information from Forbes, right? From our chief people officer. They actually have somebody in the company called chief people officer. That is how invested they are of building a power of connections. And for me, probably the most important is learn your people and live your why. And I'll be really transparent. When I started working on this, and I'm really excited to share these things, I started with learn your district, live your why. And then I thought, man, I have been doing this for years, right? As a classroom teacher, we spend the first few days, learning our students. Who can sit next to who should not sit next to who's the kid you trust to fill your cup with ice. We learn our people, and then you get to live your why. And so I'll tie that in. Got to go slow to go fast. And then backwards design, right? Teacher at heart. How do we get there? We know what we want it to look like, right? This beautiful culture of connections where the adults are connected, the kids are connected. We're connected to the mission and vision of the district, and it's a really great place to be. But how do you get there? And I never consider a PD a success unless somebody can take away something and put it into action, right? It's those little nuggets, whether it's, I'm going to start every day with good things. These are some skills and strategies. And so I'll sprinkle those in. By no means is this the end all, be all, do all. These are things that have worked with me as a leader. They are things that I please steal away any great ideas, and we will kind of kick off. So I'm going to go back to what came first, the chicken or the egg. When we think about building connections, do the connections come from, I'll take it from a teacher perspective, right? Do the connections come because we have a highly impactful teacher? Man, their teaching practices are they are on par. They are doing turn-in talks. They are asking engaging questions. They are designing engaging lessons. You do not walk into this teacher's classroom and see worksheets every day. And so because this teacher has developed really engaging lessons, the kids love her. There comes positive, student teacher relationships. That's the chicken, right? Or is it the egg? do students and teachers build really great relationships, and teachers learn their students, they learn who they are, they learn what motivates them, and so then they go and build really high impact, engaging, we called it dynamic learning experiences for their kids. So what comes first? The relationships that drives a teacher to design for their kids, or is it the teaching practices, those engaging lessons, dynamic learning that drives the kids to love their teacher? What came first, the chicken or the egg? And I'll put this even, taking a step up. If I'm a campus principal, or I'm a superintendent, a director, I'm leading teams, I'm leading meetings. Are you connected to your people because you've done a really good job of creating engaging opportunities for your people? Is your professional learning engaging? Do they have opportunities to think about their why? Is the work that you design for them, does it motivate them to build relationships with you? Or do you as a leader love your people, and you know your people, you understand what drives them, so now you're going to build this great professional learning for your people, these very intentional meetings where we're starting with good things, we're talking about our mission and vision. So what came first, chicken or the egg? I'll give you the answer. And I stand behind this 100%. I don't think it matters. I don't think it matters what comes first. I don't think it matters if you have a teacher who is or a leader who is motivated by the relationships that they build, and that drives them to design professional learning as a leader, or drives them to design dynamic learning as a teacher, or if you have a teacher that's just a really solid teacher, or a leader that's a solid leader, like PD is their thing, and then people see the time and effort and intentionality. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what came first, the chicken or the egg. The point is, we need the chicken and we need the egg. We need that high quality, engaging interactions, and we need those strong, intentional, purposeful relationships. In order to build a culture of connection, you can't have one without the other. Not to say there are great organizations that hang their hat on one and not the other, and then there are strong organizations. There are organizations that do both kind of okay, and they are strong organizations. For me as a leader, somebody asked, what is your picture of success, right? My picture of success is that I can stand back and look at my campus or look at my district, and I would be okay putting my personal child anywhere in that district with any teacher at any moment in any classroom. I felt the same way as a principal. My personal child could go in any classroom, and that's because kids deserve both. Your people deserve both, right? Like, if you're a district leader, campus leader, your people deserve both. They deserve to feel connected with the people that are leading them, and they deserve to take part in engaging work that motivates them. Your people deserve both. And I won't even go into the recruitment and the retention part of education, because we know we are in a war right now trying to recruit and retain those highly qualified teachers. And that's a whole other thing. But it'll make it happen. So, all right. So we're going to kind of jump into this, the association between teaching practice and student-teaching relationships. We talked a little bit about this. The teacher makes the lesson interesting, engaging. The students say, oh, my teacher must love me. They took time to do this great science experiment, all this hands-on learning. And then the teacher and the kids are connected. And then the teacher says, man, my kids are cognitively engaged. They're doing some great critical thinking. I love them. I'm connected with them. I'm going to keep building for them. And so I'll challenge you, change the word teacher with leader. The leader makes interactions interesting and engaging, and the teacher feels that the leader cares about them, right? The leader uses more high quality practices that lead to teacher learning. So think about what changing that out looks like, and what impact that'll have on your organization as you're really working to say, how do we make a culture of connections who we are? So this is for your data people. the why behind the what. I mentioned the Bergen and Olson study. This is from about 2022. Not going to go through all of this. You can, take a picture of it, look at it. The big three things from that study is the better the relationship, the more complex teaching practices from the teacher, right? It really motivates the teacher. And I'll make that go with leader, right? The better relationships between the teacher and the principal, the superintendent and the principals, the superintendent and the teachers, the better the relationship, the more intentional you design the learning. Um, you know, it's interesting because the study talked about the higher you get in the grades, like 10th, 11th, 12th, the more this became a little more prevalent. So, if that's the truth, think about adults, right? Like the older we get, the more important it is to be engaged. And then kind of the last piece, effectively engaging students may result in positive relationships. And so I would really, really encourage you for your organization, whether you're a campus leader, a superintendent, talk about what engagement looks like for your district. If someone is engaged in the district, if they are engaged with the mission and vision of the district, if they are engaged with the core values and the beliefs of the district, what does that look like? And that's something that we have really started talking about as a team is, what does it look like if we dot dot dot, we came together and built a social contract and said, this is, again, from capturing kids' hearts, this is how we want to treat each other. This is how what's going to happen when things get hard, because there will be a day when I am upset with you and you're upset with me, or maybe we don't agree. You don't hire yes people, right? You don't surround yourself with people that think like you. You hire people that push you and are your truth tellers and ask really hard questions and make you lay awake at night and think, man, that's really uncomfortable, but they are so right, and I should look at it from that angle. And so if you are going to be courageous enough to hire people that push you, you also have to be courageous enough to think about what happens when we disagree, because great teams disagree. I want you to kind of let that settle in. Great teams disagree. That's part of building that culture of connections, that it is okay to disagree, because at the end of the day, what is driving us is our love for students, our love for district, our love for public education. We are not in this for personal agendas or vendettas or ego. We are in this because we love our kids, we love our town, we love our district. And so when we disagree, this is what's going to happen. And I think that's part of the relationships and the motivational engagement, right? That positive relationship, whether it's adult to adult, adult to kid, principal to superintendent, is that we can, we can be truth tellers. And you will see little signs of that, and you will realize that you've arrived. So yesterday, we had a whole team meeting. I had, my principals, we have 3 principals, 2 APs, couple, few directors. So we're all in the room. There's about 12 of us. We're talking through things. We're nailing down our PD, right? Like, we have arrived. PD looks good. Breakout sessions, engagement opportunities. We are going to do some great things. It is aligned with our mission and vision. And somebody says, who changed that, or who added that? And we're like, I don't know. Who did change that? Who did add that? And it's so funny, because I can remember looking at it, and I think I even said, like, well, I wouldn't have put that. And so we go on, and my brand new middle school principal, his name Chase Coulter, he's great. We're so excited to have him. He goes, Dwayna, you wrote that. And I was shocked, number one, because I didn't think I was the one that wrote it, but I was so proud that in a room with 12 people in 3 short months, our team was in a place to where we could kind of call each other out, and we could say, hey, like, you wrote that, and let's go back and look at it. And that was a win. Like, at the end of the day, when I'm talking to my husband, I'm like, Chase called me out today, and that was a win for me, because that's a culture of connections. When you are connecting to your people and being courageous enough to be truth tellers, and living behind your why, that's what these relationships lead to. So One of the things that I loved reading, we talked about this earlier, was from Tony Handler. He's Forbes. He's from Forbes, and he is the Chief People Officer. I love that title. I think all superintendents should change their title to Chief People Officer. That is what we are. We are Chief People Officers. We principals. You are Chief People Officers. When I got my first principal job, Dr. Burke said, I am paying you to talk to people, talk to kids, talk to adults, talk to your community, be engaged people, engage people, connect with people. So we are all chief people officers, right? And so something when he kind of dug into, organizational capacity and, the power of building a culture of connection, he said there are some things that absolutely no ifs, ands, or buts have to happen, right? And the first one is your leadership has to be completely on board. If you are going to have a culture of connection, the people that are with you have to be on board with building a culture of connections. That doesn't mean that you are, you agree 100% of the time. You shouldn't agree. We talked about that. That doesn't mean that you are surrounding yourself with yes people. A yes man is not reflective of being completely on board. Being completely on board means they are on board with the mission and vision. I am on board with our organization, our classroom, our campus, our district, having a culture of connection, of us saying it is important enough to talk about over and over and over. And we are going to be so intentional with how we build connections, how we have, what checks and balances do we have for connections? What does it look like when we're, being really honest when something's going wrong? And so something that I've seen work and I love to do, I will probably always do, is that pre-interview discussion with the team. As a principal, my grade level teams did it, right? They'd come in the room and they would say, all right, there's 5 of us. We have a number 6 spot. Let's talk about our team. And we did a couple personality tests, a true colors test. They would look at their data and they'd say, all right, so we got 4 blues on this team, and blues are really relational. And we got 2 golds. Golds are like, we're organized, they're going to keep you off the news, they're following all the rules. We don't have anybody who is orange, right, who comes up with ideas, and they're pulling the data from the from these personality tests and saying, what are the strengths of our team? What do we do really, really well as a team? And then what are the gaps? And I think that's important to do, whether it's campus leadership and we're trying to hire an AP or an instructional coach or a counselor, or if it's district leadership and we're trying to hire, principals and assistant principals. But, just thinking about what is the strength of the team, what are the gaps of the team, and things will come out that you cannot possibly know, right? Like you're the chief people officer, but you can't know all of these things. Had the great opportunity to come to Rogers this year. Lots of things happened really, really quick. High school principal got a promotion district down the road. So bam, we're looking for a new high school principal. Middle school, he had been there like 12 years. Middle school principal, she'd been there about 7 or 8 years. Her husband got a promotion, in Fort Worth, somewhere far away. And so bam, she's gone. So in a heartbeat, we had teachers we had principals that collectively were like 20 years in a district together, 11, 7, 18, I don't know. And now they're gone. And so we have to hire a new middle school principal. We have to hire a new high school principal. We ended up promoting the AP in the district. So now we need an AP. And we had to go slow to go fast. We brought teachers together. We brought other leaders in the district together. And we said, what are the strengths of our team? Our campus teams, our district teams, what are the gaps? What do we need? We went really slow to go fast, and that was hard. And I think something else you have to decide is, what does on board mean to you as the leader, right? Whether you're the superintendent, you're the principal, you're the teacher in your classroom, if you're working to build this community and to get the other leaders in your little community on board, what does that mean? So policies are clearly communicated. This is something that I heard my former superintendent, Dr. Jeff Burke, say all the time. When anxiety increases, right? So when my anxiety goes up, like I'm up here, productivity decreases. And when anxiety goes up, your constraints come out, right? So for me, I'm talking really fast. I tend to talk fast when I'm nervous, and I move really fast when I'm anxious. That's my constraint. And sometimes I move too fast. And so when I'm anxious, I'm more likely to move too fast, right? When anxiety goes up, constraints come out, productivity goes down. Your job as a leader is to increase productivity, whether it's the productivity of your people to build connections. It's a strong teacher, and then they're working to get more out of their kids. So if your job as a leader is to increase productivity, increase connections, create opportunities for connections, that means your job as a leader is also to decrease anxiety. The best way to decrease anxiety is to clearly communicate. And I will live on this, calendaring and then more calendaring. The thing I hate hearing the most is when a teacher or principal or whoever says, well, I sent it in an email. You absolutely sent it in an email. But in education, we wear lots of hats, we got lots of things going on, and we get lots of emails. And so you absolutely send it in an email, send it in a calendar invite. If you want somebody to turn something in, I always put it as, hey, last call for changes to the grading policy, last call for newsletter, right? Like, put it on their calendar a day before it's due, and their anxiety goes down, their productivity goes up, and then those connections, right? It's easier for people to connect when they're not anxious. So communicate, and that goes to policies. Tony Handler talked about policies and systems, and I think that absolutely goes to it. What are the policies and systems of your organization, of your campus, your district, your classroom? But set your people up for success. Use the calendar. Communicate, over communicate. Just lower their anxiety, increase their productivity. And the third thing is every location becomes a small community. And I thought this was really, really powerful, because sometimes we look at culture as educators, right? We look at culture as a district thing, the culture of our district. Sometimes we even look at, culture as a campus thing, right? The culture of the campus. When you're in districts that have multiple elementaries, multiple middle schools, multiple high schools, people will always say the culture at every campus is different. And absolutely true, right? Culture kind of takes on the style of the leader, but it is your job as a leader to make sure every location is a small community. And the first thing you got to think about is, what are the locations in my district, right? What are the locations? So locations in your district, that could be a campus. It could be grade level teams. It could be your paraprofessionals, your transportation workers, your child nutrition workers. Your principals are their own location. Your APs are their own location. People need community. And that is part of building a culture of connection. It's your job as the leader to make sure that every location becomes a small community. How do you do that? Culture and climate checks, right? Ask them, anonymous surveys, do something with the surveys. Take time to connect, take time to talk to your people, to get feedback. Who are the people? And I'll go back, like, put it on your calendar, right? I'm going to to child nutrition today. I'm going to talk to all my cafeteria managers and say hello. I'm going to go sit at the high school and have lunch today and tell them how great the lunch is. If you're a teacher, you have so many small communities in your classroom. If you are a superintendent, you have more communities than you ever will even know about. So I would say, sit down with your team and say, what are the locations in our district that have the potential to be a small community, right? Child nutrition, that can be a small community. Transportation, small community. And then maintenance and operations, their own community. You have to be knowledgeable of how you're building those small communities so that you can be intentional on how you're developing that culture of connection. Create live events that people want to attend. This was my favorite PD ever. I am in a dinosaur suit. We raced down the hall. I won. I was a principal here. You can see my face. It's filled with joy. I'm being clapped. I'm way ahead. I'm a winner. I am the winning dinosaur suit racer. It was a great, great day. I can't even tell you what we learned about at that PD. I'm sure it was great because our district always did a great job at developing our DLTs, putting together PDs. They did a great job, right? Don't know what we learned about, but I know I was a dinosaur racer and I ran down the hall and I was a winner, right? And so when you're thinking about your professional learning, when you're thinking about how you're, conveying information, do people want to be there, or do they have to be there because the calendar says it's October 5th and it's a PD day? We don't provide blanket services for kids. As a leader, if you found out that you had a principal or a teacher that was saying every kid in the school gets 30 minutes 3 times a week, every kid in this school only gets inclusion services, you would not be happy. You would not be happy if your kids were getting blanket services. So why would we do that for adults, right? Know your who, know your small communities, create events that they want to attend. This took about 7 minutes of a 2-hour day. When you see the little racing, 7 minutes of a 2-hour day. But it made me want to go back the next day. Think about who is doing most of the talking. And I feel a little hypocritical saying that as I sit here and I talk at you about all these things. But when you're providing these events that people want to attend, right? When you're being the chief people officer, does your team have a voice in developing it? Is your team sharing out? Are you going to the boots on the ground people and saying, share with us? If you are doing most of the talking, you might want to rethink that. I always say when I go in a classroom and I'm looking for, strong connections between teacher and student and strong instructional practices, the first question I always ask a teacher is, who do you think did most of the talking? Did you, teacher, do most of the talking, or did kids do most of the talking? And if it's a teacher, we might want to, give our kids some more time to chat. Opportunities to connect. How are your people connecting? And then kind of the last thing is that continuous communication and storytelling. What are your systems for listening and getting feedback? Every district does survey. We do beginning of the year, middle of the year, end of the year. But are you doing anything with the feedback? And you probably are, right? But do your people know what you did? I think it's so important that you explicitly say, as a leader, I took this survey. This is what it said. Because you said this, we are going to do this. Or if the survey pops something that's unusual, you say, hey, the survey showed this. Can you as a group tell me more about it? What are your thoughts? Being very intentional and purposeful with building that culture of connections through opportunities for feedback, and then doing something with that feedback. And then for me, this is so important. How are you telling your story? Do you even know what you're selling? If somebody was to come to you and say, hey, tell me about ... elementary, ... district, ... principal, are you being purposeful with the story that you're sharing, right? Have you said, this is what's important to us as a district. This is how this leader embodies that. These are the great things about this campus. This is how they are connected. Are you using social media? Are you being intentional and purposeful with what you share? And sometimes that's kind of hard to hear, right? We were doing a great job of sharing things out through social media, and in the summer, not a lot of academic stuff going on. But somebody asked, like, hey, like, what do academics look like in the summer, on our social media? And I realized we had not posted anything academics. So if I'm a superintendent that says instructional practice and student achievement and student growth is important, if I'm saying that's my story and that's what I'm selling, how am I telling it and showing it? Do your behaviors match your beliefs? If you've said as a district, this is what I believe, this is what we believe, this is who I am as a leader, I'll stand on culture of connections all day long, but I better be able to pull artifacts up like this that says, this is how I know I am a superintendent that builds a culture of connections. Artifact, 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 artifact. Beliefs, beliefs to behaviors, behaviors to beliefs. So learn your people, live your why, right? So I'm a girl that likes a list. Give me a list, tell me how to do it. So I'm gonna just share this four easy steps. Steps number one: do you have a culture of connections? And I guess before that, do you want a culture of connections? If you're still listening, like 40 minutes into it, I'm gonna say yes. But do you have a culture of connections? And who do your people feel connected to? This is probably the best thing I've ever done in education, and that's stay interviews. Um, got the idea from a great high school principal in Royal ISD, Miss Shalonda Dumas. When she came on as a new principal and she was going throughout the year, she talked about this is something that she wanted to do. And so I took that idea and stuck it in my pocket and got to Rogers ISD. And I spent the summer, I offered every employee in the district one-on-one time with me. We got it on the calendar. My secretary Lexi helped me kind of schedule things and make it happen. And we sat down and we talked, right? Like, what is your journey? What got you to Rogers? What would make you stay? What makes you stay? Because we have districts to the left and to the right that probably pay a little more, but our people choose to stay with us, and I need to know why, so I keep doing it. And what would make you leave? In every relationship, there's a moment. Maybe it's your spouse like has left his socks on the floor too many times, and you're like, oh my God, am I crazy? Like, he just keeps leaving them on the floor. And so I tell my like my staff, my teachers, right? Like, why do you stay what was your hard moment that made you think about it? Like, maybe I do need to go down the road. And what made you stay? What was bigger? What was so much bigger that made you stay? And most of the time, what you'll get has to do with connections, right? Whether it's they're connected to their team, they're connected to the mission and vision, they're connected to the district. We have a lot of generational families whose parents and grandparents went to our district, and they feel really connected to that. So I'm gonna I'm going to challenge you with this, right? If somebody is staying in your district because they feel connected to the community, connected to their family, you dang sure better take time to know their family. You better take time to know that their baby plays soccer, that their husband is a champion grill master, that you are checking in and saying, hey, told me your little boy was sick this week. How's he doing? If those connections are keeping people to stay, keeping people in your district, what are you doing to kind of fan the flame of those connections? So we call them stay interviews. What made you stay? What can we keep doing? How do you feel valued? I did that, offered every person this summer. I will probably do it every summer. Um, Superintendent probably got a little more, involved this year, but I want to know what will make my people stay, and I want to make sure I keep doing it. Surveys and follow through. We talked about that. Good things connecting. Make sure you always greet your people at the door. It sounds so simple, but it's so big, right? If you're doing a PD, like, greet them at the door, say hello. I can't tell you how many teachers in these stay interviews have talked about people walking right by them. And so don't walk right by your people. This is what I talk to my principals about, right? Like, every time you walk by somebody in the hall, you're either making a deposit or you're making a withdrawal. It's your choice. If you walk by and you wave and say hello, I like your shoes, great soccer game, oh, your little boy looks so cute this morning with his little hair, you're making a deposit. Or you can walk by and say nothing, and you just made a withdrawal to that relationship. So it's your choice every day, every time. And that goes to leader engagement. What would that look like for your district? Thinking about the trends, we do something called hopes and dreams, where we ask our teachers, our parents, our community, what are the hopes and dreams for your kid? Nobody is going to say, my hopes and dream for my kid is that they make 100 on the STAR test. My hopes and dreams for my kid is that they have 100% attendance. What are the hopes and dreams of your people, right? What are we doing well? What is the community value? And more importantly, I'll go back to, like, number one, culture of connections. Model it and articulate your expectations. One of the things that I'm big on is I expect my people to respond to parents in 24 hours, which means I better respond to them in 24 hours. And that's a lot harder than I thought it would be as a new superintendent. But, sometimes I'm up late and I'm up early, but I try really hard to practice what I preach. Do you have a strategic direction? And if you have it, is it aligned with who you are as a district, or is it words on a piece of paper? We found as ours were words, we came together as a district team and kind of revamped it. And because then we want to live it. And step 4 is those checks and balances. You should be meeting with your team every month. They should get FaceTime. That's your mini PD. Every agenda, every time. You should be talking about your strategic direction, the mission and vision. Every agenda should have opportunities to connect. You should be talking about your artifacts and evidence. If we have a culture of connection, what are our artifacts? Are there things that you need to strategically abandon? If somebody asks you why you are doing something and you can't answer them, or it's, well, we've always done it, does it need to be strategically abandoned? And this is for my superintendents, my board updates and my board agendas. We're working really hard to align with our strategic direction, align with our mission and vision. We just want everything really tight. Like, if this is who we are, you're going to see it over and over and over. And then who's your accountability partner, right? Like, who is holding your feet to the fire to make sure that you are, living your why, and that you are engaging and building a culture of connections? And have you done a good job of building that communities, those small communities, right? Like every group of people as a community, and do they have accountability partners? So number one, do we even have a culture of connections? Number two, what does it look like for us, right? Because what it looks like for Rogers is not what it looks like for you. Do we have a strategic direction? Do we have a mission and vision that is guiding us every day? And do we have checks and balances, right? I always say it doesn't matter what program, what system, what you do, it is only as good as the consistency of implementation. There is no magic bullet. There is no one thing that's a million times better than the other, but it is, are you implementing with consistency and fidelity, and are you bringing it back? That's why we talk about connections and connectedness and relationships every meeting, every time. That's important to us. It'll always be important to us. So at every meeting, you will hear us talk about our mission, our vision, our good things, and how we're connecting. They are probably tired of it, but anybody that is in Rogers knows that's who we are. These are just some resources. I said I'd always give you, resources. So strengths and constraints. How are you learning your people, right? Some of the things we've done is the True Colors assessment, the 5 workplace love languages. There's some work personality test. I would say whatever it is, figure out your people, right? We do true colors, right? Orange, green, blue, and gold, right? What is their primary color? What is their secondary? That tells you a little bit about their personalities. We've done organizational blueprint from CKH that does a great job of strengths and constraints. What's your people's love language? How do your people like to be affirmed? I do this one as a principal. I did this one, the love languages, and kept it on a chart because I was really big on trying to affirm people, and some people want it publicly, some people want it privately, some people like acts of service. When your teachers are having a hard day, knowing how they like to be affirmed and knowing how they like to be loved will help you build your culture of connections. So backwards design shown the way. These are some of the things we talked about, right? Going slow to go fast. We do stay interviews, talked about that. We have think tanks where we bring our people together and say, what are the things that we're struggling with in the district? What are your ideas? Everybody gets a voice. Student panels, I would say, if you can start every year with student panel at some PD, some gathering of teachers, that will drive your connections and kind of make people remember their why. And then calendar with purpose. I mean, you're gonna hear me keep saying calendar. Keep the main thing, right? That's your mission and vision. That's the hopes and dreams of the district. There are only 2 things you can control. You can control the relationships that you build, right? And what kind of work you're designing. That is for every educator in every facet, from the teacher, the relationships they're building with their kiddos, and the work that they're designing. Is it a worksheet? Is it a lab? Is it engaging? To the superintendent, right? The relationships that the superintendent is building with the board, with the community, with the principals, with the teachers. Superintendent can control that. You can be intentional and purposeful and build that culture of connections. And then superintendent, you can control the quality of work that you design for your teachers. What does it look like when they come back? How do PD days look? How are you, cycling that down to your principals? Talking about leadership as a behavior, this is something we did at the beginning of the summer. Your team understanding their strengths and constraints, anxiety and productivity. And for you, how are you being intentional about the anxiety of your people? One of my best, she was an amazing para. Her name was Wrigley. Great para. Ended up as she was a para working through college. Now she's a teacher. She was great. She was wonderful. She taught all the things when she was a para for me. She was the girl you called when you needed something. And so, and I needed lots of somethings, right? You always need somebody to help and fill the gaps, and maternity leave, and they're out. And so I would text her and I'd say, hey, can you come by my office a minute? And I didn't, and never for anything bad, ever. But I didn't learn until a little bit down the road that every time I said that, it made her, she was like, am I in trouble? Am I getting fired? Well, no, you're not getting fired. You should get a medal. You are Wrigley. You are wonderful. And so I had to be intentional with, hey, I need your help. Can you come by my office when you have time? And just saying, I need your help made her anxiety go way down, right? So like, how are you being intentional? And then whole team engagement, right? Like what you preach, what you practice, calendaring, making sure you have time every week for checking in on the culture and climate, being engaged. We do teaching and learning walks. We bring the maintenance director, the athletic director, everybody's going into classrooms and seeing the learning that goes on. We're affirming teachers. Cover a class. Something that I love about being a small district is if we have an open class, there's a Google sheet that'll come out and you sign your name into it. DLT, make sure you're growing your leaders, and then have you developed a feedback loop, right? Like we talked about, is there surveys? What are you doing with it? Do your people see that you're doing something with it? Are you open to kind of that level of feedback? And so we are wrapping it up, and this is my launch. This is how I end I start every meeting with good things. We end everything with a launch. That's kind of us wrapping it up. I'll tell you the best launch I've ever seen for my district. We did about a week ago, I guess, a couple weeks ago, and we launched out by having people write affirmations kind of throughout the day and then read those affirmations. And that was how we ended the meeting, with our people reading very intentional affirmations. And I had modeled it earlier in the day. And something that was so special was we had a brand new counselor. She was new to the district. She was bringing her little boy with her. He's in elementary. He's very, very nervous. And apparently at some point in the 2 days, the elementary team, the principal, AP, counselor, had taken time to talk to that mama. And so her affirmation was from a mama, right? Affirming that team for taking time and easing her fears and making a plan for her son. And if that's not a culture of connections, from a high school counselor to an elementary campus who are now going to share a kid, right? Like one's a mama, one's a principal, one's a campus, right? That's a culture of connections. So I threw this in there, 5 ways to improve your classroom culture. I think this can go to campus culture, district culture, simplify the rules. Something that I will hear me preach all the time, if you ever hear me speak, is, what hill are you going to die on? I can remember, when I interview people, I want to walk away and have a sense of who they are as a person. Because if you know who you are as a person and what your values and beliefs and where you stand, everything else can be coached, right? But if I don't know what hill you're going to die on, then I don't know how you're going to make decisions. And so, simplify the rules. I always ask my principals, is that where you want to plant your flag? And if it is, that's it. But you don't get 100 flags. You can't plant your flag all day, every day, all year. You can't plant your flag all day with teachers. You can't plant your flag with kids. You got to, keep it simple, right? Where are you going to plant your flag? What hill are you going to die on? And so that's kind of goes to simplify the rules. Motivational techniques. This was new for me. I tend to communicate with sarcasm sometimes. And so I have to be very cognizant of how I'm communicating, how I'm building connections, giving everyone what they need. That goes to know your people, right? Do you know them? Are they getting what they need? Celebrate, celebrate, celebrate. Affirmations, affirmations, affirmations. How are you celebrating your people? And here's what I'll tell you. If you don't develop a system and a process and it's not on your calendar, it will not happen. You superintendents, principals, even teachers, you are too busy for the things for it to come naturally every day. You need to calendar it in. It needs to be a system. It needs to be a process. It's like basketball. It needs to be muscle memory, right? Like we do, this is how we do it. This is when we do it. This is on the schedule. This is how we celebrate. And I'll go back to starting every day with good things. And I think that's the class meeting, right? Connections. And that's good things for your teachers, good things for your district team. How are you saying it is important for us to connect? And so my launch is this. It is a question. This is what I'd like you to do as you finish this is what does this look like in your role? Whether you're a campus leader, a district leader, a superintendent, how are you improving your culture of connections? So thank you so much. I appreciate your time and engagement. Please feel free to reach out with me. I should have put my contact information up there, but I am Duana Brashear, Duana Brashear. I think you can see it on my name. And then I am with Rogers ISD. So please, reach out if you have any questions. We'd love for you to come visit our campus. It's my first year there, but we'd love for you to see our district.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Superintendent Brashear. And thank you all that have been tuning in and listening in, whether that be on the YouTube channel or the podcast. And yeah, so we're going to have another superintendent coming up here shortly. Hopefully you found this content super helpful. We're covering so much today in today's summit. And so culture is such a very impactful area within a school district. So if this has just been an amazing presentation. So just it covered so many areas of it. So you may have to watch it a couple of times because it's just packed with very, very good content, great content. And so we do want to give a shout out to our sponsor before we close out. Ideal Impact. Ideal Impact's giving away hundreds of millions of dollars away to public education in the form of a free gift. So if your district needs funding for anything, unrestricted funds, higher teacher salaries, whatever it may be, reach out to Ideal Impact. And so we're going to take a brief break here, and then we are going to have our next superintendent. And Superintendent Brashear, just thank you again for presenting today.